so I can't get it turned out. But it's okay.
All right, we'll be fine.
So Tim, do you want us all to mute?
We
Yeah.
can do that from our end, though.
Okay, Jen. All right. I thought so, but I know the option is there on the screen.
I've got
Unmute if
mine
you
on
need to
5
speak at
second
a
delay.
certain point.
So this is gonna be on YouTube and stuff too, all right?
Actually, you're all on YouTube right now.
Second time today.
Hello, all. Hi, David.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
David's a pro. He already has the picture already framed and looks really good.
I'm in my office. It's kind of a static spot.
It is Dave.
Hey,
All right.
Hello, Alan.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
Good. Good, doing okay.
Good. That's good.
This is kind of like the astronauts from the space station, you know.
Right. Right.
Hey, Glenn.
That's not Glenn Koppelman live.
You still say hello to him.
Hi, Glenn. He's
Bill, you've
muted.
got a backdrop there.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Bill has a green screen.
Wow. It could be
Oh,
memorable.
Glenn.
Oh,
my
and look at
goodness.
Man.
Koppelman.
Wow. Those are beautiful.
Well, it's lilac season, you know.
I know.
That's
I
true.
know. But
Let's
they are
recite
beautiful.
poetry. When lilacs last in the courtyard bloom.
Oh, leave it to Mr. Wilson.
Actually, it's
Poetry
deadline
too.
season.
We have poetry too tonight at the meeting. That's good.
Well, you know, every group needs a little bit of culture.
Yes.
There you go.
Color, he says.
I'm gonna write that one down.
You don't have to. It's live on YouTube right now.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
You love telling us.
Oh, so we are. Look at that. Are we being recorded for posterity? Oh, yes, we are.
yes.
we are.
Be careful what you say.
So
Be careful what you say.
a couple things, guys, as we come in, I need to know who Bob is. And I'm guessing that's Bob from Salem. Could you unmute yourself and help me out?
I'm from Salem, New Hampshire. Bob Donahue.
Yep, Bob Donahue, got it. And then my Mac. Who is my Mac?
It's Gwen, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know why.
Come on, Gwen,
We'll
show your
fix that.
face.
All right, Gwen.
Gonna see you tomorrow night, you know.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Your video.
I got you, Gwen. You're all set.
There.
There she is.
Sure, Scott's eating dinner too.
All right, Gwen. Richard, you're looking younger.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
So Jen, what
Dave,
river?
at this point, we have gone live onto public input.
Right.
Jen, is that the Squamscot behind you?
Glenn sitting in lilacs, huh?
Yeah, I'm sitting amidst a bouquet.
He just got shoved over here.
Let's not call it a corona, okay?
Oh,
Oh, bad.
oh, that's a low blow.
Wilson, that's bad.
Those are some immense lilacs behind you there, Glenn.
Yeah.
They're beautiful, aren't they?
Nephrosa or something.
Can somebody put a fly in there on one of the lilacs?
Looks like a woolly worm to me.
Bad.
Well, I'll tell you, with all the Zoom meetings I've been having lately, I got really tired of looking at the walls behind me.
Yep.
Okay, okay,
I said, I have to do something about this.
nice.
All right. I've got a couple other things I need to square away so we can get started. Couple phone numbers that I wanted to get. 926-0370. Can I get a name for that?
Stephen Gerardo, Greenland, New Hampshire.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, and then also 603, it's 427-2806. I try that one
That
more
number.
time. I just looking for a name on 427-2806.
Chris Cross, Newington, RPC.
Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
All right, let me just take care of that business. It's just
Stephen or Stephen?
Well, I know.
excellent. All right, I just saw Julian Kitska from Plastell come in. All right.
What?
All right. I'm just making sure I have everybody's name down for roll call votes, guys. Just give me one more minute. And I think we're good. I think I have everybody.
Come over here. Come over here.
So with that, Barbara, I would turn it over to you to call the meeting to order whenever you're ready.
Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:02. So, welcome to the Rockingham Planning Commission meeting of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. In this capacity, RPC addresses transportation requirements under federal law. In accordance with Emergency Order Number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-08 and RSA 91A:2, little I3B, as chair, I've declared the COVID-19 outbreak an emergency and waived the requirement that a quorum be physically present at this meeting. Importantly, a roll call is required for all votes. This is RPC's first MPO virtual meeting using the Zoom technology. Accordingly, we've adjusted our usual procedures to accommodate the virtual format. Commissioners and other representatives to MPO have received instructions on how to enter this meeting, and you will find your audio muted to avoid background noise and more than one person speaking at the same time. Our general practice is to open the RPC meetings with those in attendance introducing themselves. To carry this out, Tim Roach will now call the roll and everyone's audio will be open. When you're called, state your name and tell us if anyone else is in the room with you. Then mute your audio. If your name is not mentioned, please make us aware of your presence by waving your hand in front of your face or alerting us by writing on the chat panel. Tim?
All right, I will,
Go around the room.
yeah, I'll unmute everybody. I'm just gonna call your name, and then as Barbara indicated, just say that you're here and if you're alone in the room that you're in. Richard McDermott,
Here, alone.
Phil Wilson,
Here and alone.
Jim Doggett.
Here with Mary and Alan.
Okay, and Mary Allen is
Yeah.
with Jim. Got it. Elizabeth Morrow,
I am here and alone in the room.
Mike Terrell,
Here and alone in the room.
Glenn Davison,
Here, alone in the room.
Andrew Brubaker,
Here, alone in the room.
Tim White,
I'm here and I'm alone.
Al Davis,
Here and alone.
Barbara Kravitz,
Here and alone.
and Carnaby. Oh, Ann, are you there? Oh, I saw her there. All right. People seem to be muted again. Hold on a sec.
Her audio might not be on at her end.
Yeah, I have everybody unmuted. That's okay. Tim White,
I'm here and I am alone.
all right. All right, Glenn Koppelman,
Here, alone.
Brad Nichols,
Here, alone.
Lang Plummer,
Here, alone.
Peter Coffin,
Here and alone.
Phil Winslow,
Here at my office in Rye, alone.
Bob Donahue,
Here, I am alone.
Gwen English,
Here and I'm alone.
Tim Moore,
Here and alone.
Steve Gerardo,
Here and alone.
Chris Cross,
Here and alone.
Julian Kiska,
Here and alone.
and then I think the staff, I have Dave Walker. He's here.
I'm here.
And he's alone.
I am alone.
All right. Scott Bogle,
Here, my 8-year-old son's on the other side of the room. If he needs to leave the room, I can have him do so.
I think we're good. Amy Warhaft,
Here and alone.
noticing I got two other folks that aren't MPO members in on the Zoom side, which is interesting, but we'll talk about that later. Stephen Mino is here from Cooperative Extension and Jason Bashan from Hampton. Can you guys introduce yourselves? Maybe not. Okay. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. Did I miss anybody you're here and I didn't call your name? All right, I think we're good from there.
Looks like Mike McAndrews.
I think you missed Mike McAndrew.
Oh, did I miss you, Mike? Mike McAndrew, are you here?
I'm here and alone.
Okay, sorry about that, Mike. It's a long list. I didn't write you down. That's what happened. All right.
We're having, it looks to be some video issues on public input. I think Jen is working on addressing them. So we may just pause for a minute.
Looks like there are a lot of bandwidth issues.
Well, the video isn't appearing there.
Huh. Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Give me just a second.
Okay. Well, let me tell
Stephen
you
Mino
while
okay.
we're waiting for that to get resolved, let me tell you a little bit about what's supposed to be happening. So you're all in through Zoom like you typically would. And we are using publicinput.com, which you know better as our survey software, but it's also a software for all types of public input, including meetings. So we set this up so that the Zoom meeting could be embedded within public input. So for the end user, for the folks that are out there from the public, this would be a lot like watching this meeting on cable access. As if you were home, you'd be watching it on your computer, you'd see and hear everything that we're saying. The difference is that they will have access to provide written comments during the proceedings. They can type in comments and give us their feedback directly through a comment box to the right of the video when it hopefully turns on. So that gives them direct access there. There's also phone numbers where people can call in and listen, and also provide comment that way. And there's also the potential to leave a voicemail if someone wanted to, where they could call up and just leave a message, which would be translated for Jen and Dave to see in the back end, and we will be able to address any of those comments during the meeting. So that's how this is designed to work. And I'm just going to hold on here and hope that things are coming together.
I believe the
Yes,
issue has been resolved.
All right. If anyone's out there on public input watching the meeting, you'd certainly write in a comment and let us know that you're seeing the meeting for sure. And Jen or Dave could see those on the back end, but just to provide written comments during. All right. Type in comments and give us their feedback.
Tim, could you just explain where they go to put their written comments in case somebody hasn't done this before?
No.
Yeah, so since nobody's done this before, written comments, if you're on your computer and you're out there on public input, to the right of the video, there's a comment box where you can type in your comments. And this being the first time for all of us trying this, I'd be happy to have anyone just say hello, as opposed in addition to any comments you may have on the hearing and the tip amendment, but just letting us know you're out there would be great as well. We are going to ask when we get to that point, when you provide your comments, if there are any comments about the tip amendment, that you include your name and your affiliation so we can make sure that we have you accounted for. So, but that's the way it will work. It'll be to the right of your screen and you should be able to see that if you're out there. So if there's no other questions about that, I assume we're up and running, Jen, and we're ready to go.
Yes, we should be all set.
Okay. So from that point, Barbara, I'll hand it back to you. You can talk about the need for roll call votes, and we'll move on to the minutes when you're done with that part.
That's fine. Just one thing, Jen, could you please give your email and the RPC's main number, just in case somebody needs some help?
Yes, if folks are having issues, they can email me at jrowden, JROWDEN @therpc.org.
And RPC's main number is 778-0885. So we'll come back now to the agenda. Thank you very much, Tim, for making us all feel alive. Our agenda requires 2 votes during this meeting. The first is for accepting the minutes, and the second for approval of the tip amendment. After a motion is introduced and discussion entertained, I will ask Tim Roach to call the roll of the MPO members in attendance. At this point, everyone's audio will be open. When you are called, remember to state your name and say whether you approve, do not approve, or abstain from a vote. Again, if your name is not called, please make us aware of your presence. Our first order of business then is acceptance of the minutes of February 12th, 2020. I'll accept a motion and a second to approve those minutes. Please wave your hand or unmute yourself to be the maker of the motion or the second.
So moved, Jim Doggett.
Second, Richard.
Disconnected.
Have that?
Smartphone.
Yeah, we have a motion from Jim Doggett and a second from Richard McDermott.
Very good.
I have to ask a question if I may. Some people are mute on the screen. Should we be muting on our side or do you mute it from your side?
I just unmuted everybody
There you go.
for the purposes of the roll call vote. So I'm trying to control it from here.
Yep, okay.
All right.
If it gets too noisy, I'll mute all of you again. So, but we'll try so we have a motion and a second. Can, Barbara, should we call the question?
Comments, discussions? If you have something to say or you need to offer us some comment, let Tim know again by either raising your hand in front of your face or typing into the Zoom chat, and we'll all know that you're wanting to say something. So, are there any comments, questions relating to the minutes of February 12th, 2020? Anybody?
No.
Seeing none.
All right, I'll do the roll call votes.
Do
Seeing none. Yep. Richard.
Yes.
Yeah. Phil Winslow.
Abstain.
All right. Phil Wilson.
Approve. Phil Wilson, approve.
Yep. Jim Doggett.
Approved.
Mary Allen.
Approved.
Beth Morrow.
Approved.
Mike Terrell.
Mike Terrell, abstain.
Glenn Davison.
Sustain.
Andrew Brubaker.
Andrew Brubaker, approve.
Tim White.
Tim White abstains.
All right. Al Davis.
Approve.
Barbara Kravitz.
Approve.
Ann Carnaby. Ann can't seem to hear us. Glenn Koppelman.
Approve.
Brad Nichols.
Abstain. Brad.
Lang Plummer.
Excuse me, abstain.
Peter Coffin.
Abstain.
Bob Donahue.
Donahue, abstain.
Gwen English.
Abstain.
Tim Moore.
Approve.
Stephen Gerardo.
Abstain.
Chris Cross.
Approve.
Julian Kiska.
Approve.
And Mike McAndrew.
Approve.
And did I miss anybody? I don't think so. All right, I think we're good.
The minutes of February 12th, 2020 are approved. Now, we're up to the presentation on amendment number 4 to the RPC's 2019 Transportation Improvement Program. During David Walker's presentation, the audio will also be muted. We would prefer that you hold questions and comments until David has concluded. However, if you have an urgent question, please alert by way of your audio. If you are familiar with Zoom, you actually can unmute yourself, but please wait until you are recognized before speaking. Please keep your audio muted, and you can also get your attention by writing your question on the chat panel. Tim, do you want to just remind folks how to create their comments on the chat panel or the public access?
Sure, we can do that. As I said a few minutes ago, when we were waiting for the public input video to come up, if the public is out there on public input, they have a comment box to the right of where they're watching the video. They can write comments now or throughout Dave's presentation or after he's done. There's about a 30-second delay from what we're saying right now to what they're hearing. So there will be a little bit of delay for them to actually hear everything that Dave has to say. But it is there, it's out there to the, it gives people that option to write those comments in. Very simple, very straightforward. Just write in your comments with your name and your question or concern regarding the tip amendment. We will read those to the body of the MPO so that it's all part of the record, and those will also be recorded through the public input software. So we'll have a complete record of everything that's discussed. You know, after Dave completes the presentation, we'll open the public hearing. The MPO can ask some questions in addition to the public offering their question and comments. And that should give us time to get everything, you know, in place. And then, you know, we can move forward from there about taking action on the proposed amendment. So again, written comments through public input. Folks on the phone have the opportunity to comment if there are any. And there's also a voicemail option that people can leave that'll be translated for us to act on if necessary. So it's all available through that portal. So with that, I could pass it off. If you're okay with that, Barbara, we can pass it off to Dave
That would be
for his presentation. I believe he's going to share his screen, I believe.
for the
So.
presentation.
Okay. Yes, I will be sharing my screen. I'm going to bring that up now. Making sure I get the right screen. All right. So if I've done this right, everybody's seeing tip amendment number 4 screen. So hopefully somebody will tell me if they aren't. And so anyhow, okay, so we are here tonight to consider amendment number 4 to the 2019 tip. This is part of a public hearing, and this will hopefully result in the MPO approval for the tip amendment. For the benefit of the, you know, we do have a number of people here who are either new to this process or maybe members of the public. So I'm going to go into a little bit more depth on what an amendment is and why we're doing it than I might normally. So there's a couple extra slides here from what you might normally see had you had to sit through a tip amendment presentation before. So in New Hampshire, in the New Hampshire transportation planning process, there are really 3 planning documents that we deal with that are our sort of primary planning and documents. We have the MPO Long Range Transportation Plan, which is a 20-year plan. It's a big picture document, has lots of goals and objectives, as well as a long and short-term action list and projects. We have to have that fiscally constrained. And meaning that we can't be proposing to spend more money in the plan than we believe will be available to the region over that course of time. This document is updated every 4 to 5 years, and we do usually interim and small minor updates to it every couple of years, and to some degree with every amendment like this. So projects that are listed in that document become candidates for the state 10-year plan. This is a state document, it is not the MPO document, but it's the state 10-year queue of projects that are going to be constructed around the state. That document is also fiscally constrained, and it's really the state's commitment to funding a particular project. We have targets in terms of funding that we try to meet within that. And when we do submit projects for the 10-year plan, we are trying to limit our request to the amount of funding in our target. This is a rolling process for the 10-year plan updates. The process is run through the state every 2 years. And so we are really just kicking off in the fall, we'll be kicking off a new update to the 10-year plan. And so we'll be looking at projects from our long range plan as candidates for the state 10-year plan. And so projects that are in the first 4 years of the state 10-year plan are in what is called the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. So this is the most immediate next 4 years. This is projects that are near or are being implemented or are near to being implemented. They may be under construction or under design, or going through the right-of-way process, things like that. Every project that is federally funded or considered regionally significant, so a regionally significant project might be a project that's on I-95, which is a state turnpike project. It might be funded by the state, but because it's such a major facility, we consider that regionally significant, and so it must be included in our TIP. At the point that projects are in the TIP, the funding is dedicated to them by the feds and by the state. And again, this document must be fiscally constrained in that we can't be proposing to spend more money than we think is going to be available over that course of time. And because we are much more clear on what our funding might be over the next 4 years, both at the MPO region and at the state level, it's a much easier thing to do to fiscally constrain it, because we essentially know, with pretty good certainty how much money is coming in. So all of the regional TIPs put together are create the state TIP, or the STIP, and all of those documents are updated on a 2-year cycle. So getting into the TIP revision process itself, there are 2 types of TIP revisions. There's administrative modifications and amendments, and the type of revision is really based on the scale of the changes that are being requested, and for each type of change, administrative modification or amendment, there are a different set of rules regarding the time frame in which we process them and the amount of public involvement that's required. And those rules are really based on a few differences in a few things. Really, and it boils down to the scope, how much the scope is changing, or how much the cost of the project is changing, or how much the schedule of the project is changing. And so we have a set of thresholds that have been established statewide. So all the MPOs and the state have agreed to these thresholds, and projects that meet thresholds on that scope, cost, or schedule change must be considered amendments. In addition, we have the discretion as an MPO to elevate any minor change to a project to a full amendment if we feel like the change might be controversial, even if it is a very small change. So I'm going to focus just on talking about amendments in this case, but essentially the process is that the MPO amendments, they occur quarterly, roughly. The schedule varies a little bit, but it's generally about 4 times a year we address amendments, and they address substantial changes to the project scope, schedule, and cost. I'll be showing you examples of those as we go through the actual projects in this amendment. But there's a sort of 5-step process that we go through. The DOT provides a draft amendment that is reviewed by staff at each of the MPOs, and then endorsed through what's called our interagency consultation process, which is a monthly meeting that we have specifically designed with our federal, state, and regional planning partners to talk about the different changes that are being requested to projects and to consider whether they should be amendments or just minor revisions. Once the amendment has been sort of finalized and established, it's processed by the staff here at the MPO, and we put it into our TIP revision database. We establish at that interagency consultation process how long of a public comment period is desired by all the agencies, and we come to an agreement on that. In this case, we've agreed to a 10-day comment period due to this small number of projects that are being considered. That comment period is timed to end the day before a policy committee meeting. So our public comment period technically ended yesterday at the end of the day, although we are during the public hearing, we'll be considering any comments received during the hearing and prior to that. As part of the process and our sort of fourth step, our Transportation Advisory Committee, otherwise known as the TAC, reviews the changes and makes a recommendation to this body as to whether the amendment should be approved or not. And then as part of this hearing tonight, the MPO Policy Committee examines the amendment, considers it, asks questions, and after discussion, hopefully we get an approval on the amendment. So now getting to this amendment itself, amendment number 4. So this is an amendment to the 2019 Transportation Improvement Program and State Transportation Improvement Program, and that covers the years 2019 to 2022, being a 4-year document. There are 4 projects that we're considering tonight. 3 of them are projects that are within the region, and 1 is part of a statewide program. So we started our public comment period on May 2nd, 2020, and concluded it on May 12th, 2020. That was yesterday. And as of that point, we had received no public comment about any of the project changes. So in terms of the funding change that's being put into place by this revision, it's adding about $10.6 million to the amount of money in our TIP. And looking at the bigger picture of the long-range transportation plan, it's adding about $20.7 million to that document in terms of costs. So sent out with the revision report that went to all policy committee members and is posted on our website for the public to view and on publicinput.com as well, is this standard sheet that I send out, which is about how to read the TIP revision report. And I'll go through that in very briefly here now. At the very top of the first page is the revision that we're looking at, the docket detail, what are we dealing with? Is it TIP Amendment 3 or TIP Amendment 4, that sort of thing, and when it is likely to be approved. In the center of the page is how the particular project is listed currently in the TIP in terms of what fiscal year funding is occurring in, where the funding is coming from, specifically whether it's federal, state, or other, as well as the funding programs, how much the total cost is in the TIP itself, how much the total project cost is overall, and other various bits of information about the project. At the bottom of each page is how the project is proposed to be once the amendment is approved. And it shows where funding will be in what fiscal years, the funding sources again, and funding programs, as well as the total project costs at the end. And so each page of the revision report is set up in exactly the same way, with the only difference being that if a project is being added to the TIP as a new project, it will only show up in the pending. If a project is being removed from the TIP, such as this one, we do keep the one that's used as an example here, we do keep the pending in there and just zero everything out. So in this case, this example project, commuter intercity bus replacement project, was actually being removed from the TIP. And so all the costs are zeroed out at the bottom. So getting into the 4 projects that are being considered, I'm going to go through each of them and just discuss briefly what is being changed. So the first project is Hampton 40797. This is the proposed improvements to Ocean Boulevard right there on Hampton Beach. And the primary change to this project is the addition of about $1 million to fiscal year 2021 in engineering, otherwise known as PE, preliminary engineering. There are some other minor cost changes that are occurring. For instance, you might see in the approved under right-of-way, it's $113,000 in $113,080 in 2021. In the pending, it is listed as $110,000 even. This is due to the fact that as the revision to this project is being done in a new fiscal year, basically NHDOT recalculates inflation. And so sometimes that causes a very slight uptick or decrease in the project cost as a different inflation rate is being calculated. But the primary change to this project is this $1 million being added in 2021. Basically, some of the engineering is being advanced on that project so that more can be done earlier on that. Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Kittery, Maine 16189 is the second project. This is the rehabilitation of the I-95 bridge over the Piscataqua River. This is a project that is ongoing right now. Basically, once the project was bid, the costs were more substantial than had been anticipated. And so this, the cost change is the adjustment of the cost to reflect the actual cost of making the improvements to that bridge and the rehabilitation. And that is a pretty substantial increase. I believe it's about a $20 million increase in the project overall. Some of that money is being funded by the state of Maine. And you can see that on the funding source under the pending side. Anything that's listed as other, that is the state of Maine paying for this. So it's roughly, I think, a 55-45 split on that project between New Hampshire and Maine. The third project is the statewide project. This is the RWIS project 25198. RWIS stands for Road Weather Information Systems. And it's essentially sensors that are placed in or adjacent to the roadway to measure things like whether the pavement is icy or not, that sort of thing. And this is a fairly simple change to this project. There's no cost change at all. It is simply a change in the scope to remove that add date that was in the approved version that was set for October 29th, 2019. The add date has been removed from that scope. That is the only change that is occurring. Finally, the fourth project, and the last one here, is Stratum 41711. This is improvements proposed for the intersection of Route 108 and Bunker Hill Avenue in Stratum. This was a project that was added to the 10-year plan 2 rounds ago and has been sort of making its way forward. Is scheduled for construction, I believe, in 2023 or 2024. And in advance of that, the state and the town have worked together to advance the engineering or some of the engineering on that project to 2021 to take advantage of the fact that the town has the right of way out there now and they can start examining what might actually be needed out there for improvements a little bit earlier than what they had anticipated originally. So this is a new project being added to the TIP, in that new money is being added to 2021. So that is a new addition. Okay, so there are 2 more pieces that we need to consider about the amendments. First is air quality conformity. And we have to discuss that a little bit, but we are in attainment and have been in attainment since 2013. So we rely on what is, we basically say that we're relying on our previous analysis about conformity. And what it means is that we are in conformity and we believe we will remain in conformity with air quality regulations, even with this, despite or with this change included. So we don't really need to do anything about this other than make the statement that we're relying on our previous analysis. The second piece is related to fiscal constraint. And as you may remember, I mentioned a few times earlier that we have to do our planning and our document work to not make assumptions that we're going to spend more money than is available. In this case, we are still fiscally constrained, and statewide, we believe that there will be more money, or at least as much money available as is being programmed in the TIP and the STIP. At the bottom of this slide is the statewide TIP totals for the 4 years from the NHDOT's fiscal constraint table that goes along with the amendment. And you can see that the amount of funding available is greater than the amount programmed in each of the 4 years of the TIP. So the TAC met, the Transportation Advisory Committee met on April 23rd and recommended that the MPO Policy Committee approve tip amendment 4. There was limited discussion as to the changes, and there nothing that I haven't already covered here tonight. At this point, I would be ready to open up to the board for any comments or questions that you might have.
Barbara, do you want to open the public hearing officially?
Yes, I think so, just so that we can be kind of efficient. We'll open the public hearing now at 7:40 for the tip amendment number 4 as presented by David. We will accept comments and questions and discussion from both MPO members and public access people. So
if Dave could unshare his screen, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Here we
Thanks.
go.
So Tim, do you want to try to move that along, please?
Yeah, sure. So typically the way we do this is we open this up to comments and questions from the MPO. We don't often have members of the public at our physical meetings. I believe we have some people out on public input right now. In fact, I can, if you can see this, I don't know if you can, but that's the public input portal on my phone simultaneously to what we're doing here on Zoom. So there's an opportunity there for folks to have if they have any comments on those projects, to ask questions or make those comments. And also for you all, if you have a question or comment, if everyone can more or less keep the noise down, I'll unmute everybody and we can, or I'll ask you actually if you can raise your hand if you have a question or comment. If I see you, I'll try to unmute you. Otherwise, oh, Phil, all right. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Phil.
More of an informational question to Dave. But on the I-95 bridge, Dave, that's a major artery in the Maine. It would appear to me that Maine should be covering the 55% cost of New Hampshire 45. Can you give us some reasoning for that?
Glenn Davison might be able to weigh in a little more on this, but my understanding of it is that the approach from the New Hampshire side, there's more work happening on that aspect of it. I believe the bridge itself is essentially owned 50-50 by the two states. But I believe that the approach work is why it's not. And I don't know, Glenn, if you have any thoughts on that as to why it's not exactly 50-50.
No, I really don't. I think it is because more of the work is on our side, and I think that's an agreement we struck with Maine with the work. I think it might have to do too how we also cost shared the other bridges crossing between Maine and New Hampshire. So I think it was just more of an agreement between the two states that was fair and equitable. That's all I have.
That would make sense.
Excuse me, this is
Comments
Jack.
or questions?
Do you have then, is that standard practice then, that any maintenance on the bridge is going to be split 45 to 55, or is it just for this case only?
I believe it's more just this case. I think each time we do a repair, it's probably negotiated between the two states.
Yeah, each of the three bridge projects that have done between the two states have had a sort of different cost sharing agreement. I do remember, if my memory serves me correctly, for instance, on the Sarah Long Bridge, Maine picked up a larger share than New Hampshire on that case. So it may be that it's just all sort of evening out over the three projects.
And it's also who's taking lead on the project is another factor.
Yep.
Because there are
I saw that
costs
Lang
there.
had his, I saw that Lang had his hand up at one point.
Let me get to Lang then. If I can find him, there's 30 people on the screen. This is a little tricky.
There you go. I was going to say it's under P for plumber. I happened to come down there the other day, and it appears that more work is being done in Maine. And so maybe the state is doing work on ramping up. I mean, the pylons must go out 2 miles or so, I'll guess. At least a good mile before you get to the bridge.
Yeah.
It's all narrowing you down to the two lanes, but still, it appears that there's more that's going to be done in Maine than New Hampshire. Because as soon as you get in New Hampshire, well, they're all gone and you're on your way. Just an
Yeah,
observation.
on the main side, the pylons are out there for traffic management purposes. In New Hampshire, the exit 7 on ramp that's right there is closed. And in Maine, they have to keep some of those ramps open. So I think that's just trying to manage the traffic a little bit on that side a little better.
Yep. Thank you.
Beth, did I see you raise your hand?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment, being the person who probably lives the closest to the 3 bridge projects that have all happened over several years. There was also a lot of barriers put up on the New Hampshire side for the Atlantic Heights neighborhood. So a lot of the New Hampshire stuff was done early in the project, and they're just sort of making their way across the bridge. So it might look like Maine's getting more done now, but I believe it really sort of started on our end.
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense. That sound wall is not inexpensive to put up.
No.
See Glenn Koppelman's hand.
David?
Yes.
Early on in the presentation, you showed 2 different dollar figures for the effect on, I believe, the STIP, and then the effect on the long-range plan, and one was twice the amount of the other. Can you explain that for me?
So, yes. Essentially, what it comes down to is that the tip was about a $10 million increase, a little more than that. And that's due to just the project changes that are occurring during those 4 years between 2019 and 2022, and those 4 project changes. The long-range transportation plan covers 20 years, and so includes, excuse me, time both before and after the tip. So if you include the 10 million that's changing during the tip years from 2019 to 22, plus changes that are occurring beyond 2022, that's where you get to the $20+ million of the long-range transportation plan change.
Okay, thank you.
And the bulk of that is in the Piscataqua River Bridge.
Okay, thanks, David.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone else on the MPO side? Did I hear someone? If not, Jen, do we have any comments from the public input side of the process?
We do. We have one via the chat, and this is from David Moore, the town administrator of Stratham. The comment is, we are grateful to you and the RPC staff for this effort at making this hearing accessible in this way. I want to also thank RPC, that the MPO and the TAC for their work on the TIP proceeding as plans. One second. We are grateful that the state for their support in moving this project along more quickly, and we would appreciate your support for the improvements proposed for this intersection, which has been safety concerns. Thank you for your opportunity to comment.
Great.
And one more comment from Brian Warburton, the chairman of the Hampton Budget Committee and Town Master Plan Committee, just stating great presentation, really enjoyed it. And there are no comments via voicemail, and no one is on the call-in line asking to ask a question.
Great. All right.
And I would ask for the moment if there are any other comments at this time. What we're going to do right now is take a 15-minute recess of the public hearing. This will give folks who may want to reach us and haven't done that yet a chance to get comments in by voice or email or any other way that they can get our attention. When we come back, I will ask for a motion to approve the tip amendment number 4, and we will take the vote.
But don't go anywhere, because I'm going to tell you a couple other things on the agenda. We'll move on to that next agenda item. And really what I wanted to do, since I haven't seen most of you in a couple months, nice to see everybody's face and see that everyone's well. That's great. I just wanted to give you a little bit of update about how the office is functioning overall. Like most everybody else in the workforce, we are working remotely. We were set up very well to do that, where we already had a work from home policy where staff was allowed to do that periodically. And some had taken advantage of that. So from a technology perspective, most of you know Rob very well, and he had us in a great position to allow remote access to our servers, to all of our GIS data, all of our projects, and folks were able to very easily transition into a work from home scenario. And we've been in that position now since about March 17th, give or take. We're going to continue that through the end of the month. And then, that's probably going to continue on a little bit beyond that in some way, shape, or form, depending on how things go. As you can imagine, school closures, summer camp closures, and staff with kids will make it a bit of a challenge for everyone to be in the office all the time, even if we were able to. So, plan on this continuing. And I think, if I haven't heard of any problems in terms of getting in touch with us at the office. So that's good. And if, we're very accessible. If you call the office, Annette is there every day. Dave is there most every day. And our voicemail messages come directly to our email. So we're all very accessible. And I believe we put out our phone numbers in a past newsletter at one point. So in terms of other operations, the reality of it is that it can be a challenge. We're going to have some slowdowns because of the municipal boards. Some boards and meetings, some aren't. Some of the planning board works has slowed down, some of it hasn't. But we are in a very good position to continue our work with the DOT and actually catch up on some stuff that we were a little bit behind on. So that's a good thing. We're in a fine position from that perspective. Any contracts that were delayed or potentially delayed, we've extended, and we've been able to keep those things moving along. Billing and payments have been continuing along. The state has actually been very good in terms of turning around invoices. The communities that we're working with, that we have contracts with, have also been very good in able to turn around invoices and keeping us in business, which is a good thing. I think almost every town, and that's not here tonight, she would know for sure, but just about every town has paid their dues, which I very much appreciate. So thank you all for that. Just a couple more that will be coming in the next month or two, closer to July. So the organization is actually functioning very well in this scenario. So I'm happy to report that. A couple of the opportunities that we've had is, one, to explore this type of virtual meeting, and this effort to do a public hearing, which you're all part of tonight. You all heard of the challenges that towns have had with Zoom and interference on Zoom from just people that have nothing better to do, apparently. This scenario and this setup that we put together, effectively, it doesn't totally eliminate that risk, but keeps the public on the public input side, gives them full access, but doesn't allow that taking over of the Zoom meeting and the Zoom screen. So we're hopeful that if this goes well, and I would welcome feedback from all of you on both that are part of the Zoom meeting and part of the MPO, but also on the public input side, would really welcome some feedback from you in the next, day or so, just to let me know what your experience was like. Because if we can make this work for us, it could potentially work for some of our communities that are still, potentially struggling with this type of technology and meeting approach, in particular when we're having public hearings. So that's a great opportunity that we had. The other thing I would mention while I have your attention is to keep an eye on our newsletters. We put out one in April and in May, both of which were pretty full and robust. This whole pandemic has sort of put me in places where I never thought I would be. Couple of opportunities that have come along that I think have been good for regional planning in terms of our visibility and showing where we can be at least useful to our communities. Is we've been working with our partners in Southern Maine and in Northern Massachusetts, the Southern Maine Planning District Commission and the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, as well as ourselves. I've been working with all of the town managers up and down the coast regarding the issue with opening beaches and other recreational facilities on the coast. So we were able to at least provide input to the three governors and to the reopen task force and make sure that they were aware that there was this level of coordination and the need to ensure that, no one community gets overrun by doing something, different than another, or if one opens before another. So I know the governor came on today and said he's in no rush to open the New Hampshire beaches. Well, it appears Maine is moving forward. So we'll see how this all plays out, but we've definitely been helping to try and coordinate that. Another nice piece that's come out of it is we've forged a partnership with our friends in the town of Exeter, the Exeter Economic Development staff, along with RPC. We've been putting out information to all of the businesses in the region. We've established a list of over 12,000 email addresses for all the local businesses in every community. And we've been trying to just get information out about the payroll protection program, various loans that are out there, for small businesses, and just helping people sort of navigate what has been a really challenging situation for small business owners. Way outside my comfort zone, but we've been working together with Exeter and as well as REDC, the Exeter Chamber of Commerce. And between the four of us, we've been able to sort of field these questions and calls and hopefully provide a valuable service to, a side of our communities that we don't often interact with, which I feel is a good thing to have that exposure. So in addition to that, we've just been trying to keep everyone informed, and I'm going to ask you all for some feedback, not necessarily tonight, but as you're, as you're navigating these meetings with your local communities, your planning boards, give us some feedback, send us an email about what's working and what's not, because if you found something that works great, we want to know so that we can share it with the other communities and make sure that everybody, nobody has to go through the same learning curve every time. So let's share information, work through us, send us an email about what's working for you in terms of meeting processes and what isn't. That would be very helpful to your neighbors, I'm sure. And yeah, just, definitely use us from that perspective. We can definitely, we can make sure that our communities are coordinating at a regional level through this process. So yeah, it's been quite an experience, and hopefully it will all come back to some semblance of normal soon. But for the time being, I feel pretty good about the way the RPC is functioning, the outreach we've been able to do. And I hope you all are seeing that and aware of the work that we're doing. So Barbara, would you like me to mention anything else that I may have forgotten?
I think it's an armful that you kind of put in front of us, and it's very exciting. So we would hope that folks who are on this call or within their communities, if we can help you out, just call Tim. So at this time, I will, first of all, I want to thank Dave Walker and Tim Roach and Glenn Davison for their expertise and comments and responding to questions and so on. I will reopen the public hearing at 7:57. And I will accept a motion to approve. I have to say the whole thing. Help me out, David. Oh, okay.
So
A motion to approve the amendment number 4 to the RPC's 2019 Transportation Improvement Program. And I will accept a motion to approve and a second.
So moved. Jim Doggett.
Second.
Thank you.
Who was that second?
see Phil
Phil,
Wilson
Phil.
raising his hand.
Glenn Koppelman, was it? Did I see?
Phil Wilson.
Bill Wilson, okay. Jay, can I ask Jen, are there any other comments out on public input at this time?
No more comments have been received through public input.
I have none via email.
Any other comments from the folks in the room? Then I will ask all those in favor of approving Amendment 4 to RPC's 2019 Transportation Improvement Program. Please.
Has to be a roll call.
I'm gonna have to do a roll call again, much as I would love to just yes, but. So Tim, will you
It's a
call
little
the-
painful, but I'll try. Yeah, I'll get us through it. Everybody's been unmuted at this time, so just keep the background noise down. So the roll call for the approval, Richard McDermott,
Yes, sir, accept.
where'd you go, Richard? All right. Phil Wilson,
He responded.
okay, sorry, Jim Doggett,
Phil Wilson, aye.
Philip.
okay. All right, Jim Doggett,
Yes, Bill.
Approved.
okay. Mary Allen, yep.
Approved.
Beth Morrow,
Approved.
and Beth, okay. Glenn, Mike Terrell,
Yes. Approved.
Glenn Davison, you don't have to vote, do you?
I think we are voting, but I approve it.
Andrew Brubaker. All right.
Approved.
Okay. Tim White,
Tim White votes yes.
Alan Davis,
Approve.
Barbara Kravitz,
Approved.
Ann Carnaby, and Glenn Koppelman.
Yes.
And Brad Nichols,
Approve.
Lang Plummer,
Aye.
Peter Coffin,
Approve.
Phil Winslow,
Bill Winslow, approve.
all right. Bob Donahue,
Approve.
Gwen English,
Approve.
Tim Moore,
Approve.
Approve.
all right. Stephen Gerardo,
Stephen Gerardo approves.
Chris Cross,
Chris Cross, Newington votes to approve.
Julian Kiska,
Approve.
and Mike McAndrew.
Approve.
All right. And that's what I have for the roll.
Thank you, Tim. Do I take it from your running of the roll call that the amendment is approved?
Yes.
Tim, are you there?
Uh,
Tim, just
I am
confirm
here.
that
I'm
from
just
your
going to mute
count,
everybody again and yeah, I'm confirming that from the count that's a unanimous approval of tip amendment 4 by roll call vote.
Thank you. We will close the public hearing at 5 minutes after 8 o'clock. At this point, our scheduled business is concluded. We'd ask if there are any public comments, any business you want to bring to our attention. And if you do, please put your hand up in front of your face and wave. If I ever did this when my mother was alive, I mean, she would think that was rude, but it is a wonderful way to quietly show us that you're ready to talk. So, Tim, yes? You want to say
Yeah,
something?
so I just want to just briefly about June in our, which is typically our annual meeting and dinner, and we generally have a speaker. We are not obviously going through that this year. We're not going to do that type of meeting. We will do a business meeting remotely. We will nominate or vote on the slate, which you should all have gotten via email by now. The slate of officers for the commission and the executive committee. Will approve the fiscal 21 budget. And I'll try to give an overview of sort of what has happened over the past year. And then maybe a little bit about what we're looking at for the upcoming year, just in a brief presentation. But that's right now, that's what we have on the agenda for our June meeting, which would be our annual meeting. And then, hopefully we'll be able to do some sort of in-person event coming up. No, I should mention, we also have the Hayden Quinlan Awards, which we are accepting nominations for, which we would typically do in June. I think we'll discuss that at the executive committee as to whether or not we want to wait till we can present those in person or just award them via, this type of format. So, but we do have at least a couple nominations coming up for those. So that's a good thing. So we will do a slightly different annual meeting at our June event. So.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody
That's all I have.
else that might like to offer some? Did I hear somebody start to speak? Hearing no further comments or attempts to open new business, this meeting is, hold on.
Hold
Before
on,
we adjourn. Yes?
Barbara, hold on.
I
I'm waiting. Yeah,
getting
okay.
I'm getting an unstable internet connection here. But I just saw Rad put into the chat that the Coast fixed route and Route 7 on-demand services have been resumed under a modified schedule. And it's good to be back in service after a 5.5-week suspension of service. So excellent. I don't know if Rad, you want to add to that?
Thanks, Dave, for mentioning that. Yeah, we've been back from suspension the last 2 days. Ridership is down, as you'd expect. But it's been a nice soft rollout for us and re-entry for our staff. We have all the PPE in place now and sanitizing materials in place now so we can restart safely. And we're meeting all of the stay-at-home 2.0 protocols that the governor announced a week and a half ago or so. So yeah, just good to be back in operation.
Great.
Thank
Comment
you.
I had-
Good
comment I
to,
had-
it's good to have you back.
This went well.
All right.
Richard, I'm sorry, could you repeat? We couldn't hear you.
The meeting went well. No worries, Tim.
Appreciate that.
David, you too. Dave too.
All right. You can call it,
Well,
Barbara. It's your show. You can call the adjourn whenever you're ready.
you see, I'm back again because what I want to do is thank everyone for participating. And special thanks to staff who worked so hard to facilitate this meeting. And as this is the first of what we expect will be many meetings held in a virtual setting, your comments and suggestions are welcome. So please feel free to send them to any member of the staff or Tim or just the general RPC email. And we'd appreciate whatever comments you have. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:10 p.m. Thank you all.